You know, when we first went to get them, the multi-tracks had been stored in security archives locker, and they were in various stages of sort of being wrapped or not correctly wrapped or whatever. And then we had to bake them, some of them.
So they were shedding already? And
yeah, they were shedding already. That was the one thing that we had to watch for. If we were going to go for it, we only had, you know, a couple of passes before the tape will start to pack up, you know, and it'll just jam, and then it snaps. And luckily, we didn't have any of those.
So what
Honky Chateau was the one that I was most worried about because it shedded a lot.
It's terrifying, I would imagine, dealing with that.
All I could see was the headlines, you know, American producer destroys Elton John catalog.
Murdered by bespectacled. Yeah.
God, you know. But it all worked out really well.
So now those tapes,
those tapes were
digitized, but are they like?
We digitized them and we rewrapped them really clean because they had been moved around a lot. I think probably from back in the day when they were mixed and stuff, because they hadn't been pulled out that much, but they'd been moved around before they were stored. And a lot of the tapes didn't have collars on them, you know, or they weren't taped down, you know.
Right.
So the tapes had sort of settled and there were gaps in the in the wrap, and some of the boxes were really dog-eared. And then once we got everything transferred and digitized, we repacked them with new catalog numbers and new stickers, and so they could be cross-referenced correctly. Did all the scanning, all the physical scanning of all the boxes, notes, everything that was in there, every T-stain note, you know, everything, track sheets. And then sent them back to Universal, who then, instead of putting them back where they had been, they took them to a new, you know, hermetically sealed, above-ground, temperature-controlled remote facility out in somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and it's I think they're much safer now. I haven't had to pull anything out. Yeah.
So to hear that they've been stored in a crappy old underground bunker.
Well, I think everybody was in there. All the Hammer horror films were in there. All the, you know what I mean? It was all this. Yeah. It was like everybody's sent there. I'll send it over to security archives. And I think what happened is when they emptied the Dick James Music library out, they didn't have anywhere to put it, so they put it there, and then they just, you know, kept moving it around, and they themselves, you know, oh, here comes the next thing we've acquired, let's shove Elton down the line. And you know, I remember somebody telling me when they were down there picking the tapes up, they could feel the Northern Line trains go through because there's just this tiny gap in the tunnels, and they could feel their trousers, you know, like their trousers blow in the breeze. And I thought, well, that's really, you know, that's a strange way to store stuff, you know. But anyway.
Oh my God.
But it's yeah, it's.
How much of a trip is it for you to do this? I mean.
Oh, it's my favorite records by my favorite artist of all time. I feel like I've died and gone to heaven, you know. It's just incredible. Out the whole way. Yeah. Because it was like, oh, well, look at that, you know, I only ever read about that. Well, that's how they did that, you know. Yeah. Or, you know, here's a big mystery I got to unravel, you know. There's all kinds of, you know, if there was a track sheet missing, if there was something missing, it's like, oh, this is fun. It took me about, I guess, a month to mix each album. I spent about a month on each album. Just really systematically going through it. There would be the arts and crafts section, you know, where I basically got all the transfers up and learned how it looked, you know, in terms of waveforms and stuff like that. And then I'd go through and I didn't try to alter the performances at all, and I didn't really try to make too many adjustments to tape hiss or things like that, because those were all a part of it, you know, and those were things that were on the original records. What I tried to get rid of was, you know, things where there was a real breakdown in the technology, where it just was overly hissy, or where the Dolbys were weird.
Any sort of horrendous nightmares, whether it be mixing stage or whether it be trying to track down things that you needed, tapes? There was
a horrendous one. There was one that I didn't see coming with Honky Chateau, where I was at Sphere Studios in London, and I had asked the Universal Tape Library to send the tapes around once they gathered them all up. And I was waiting for them, and we were doing, I think we were doing Tumbleweed or something. We were doing another transfer. and waiting for the tapes, and they were late getting there, and it had gone dark, and it was raining, London, you know. And normally I would go pick them up myself, or they would send a bonded car. And I thought they had sent a bonded car. Who knew how to transfer valuable assets like that? So I'm getting nervous. I get a cup of tea. I'm sort of pacing the hallway at Sphere Studios. And there's a cabbie, I noticed, standing at the desk talking to the receptionist, and he's dripping. I mean, just dripping wet. And I hear him say, I've got something for Mr. Penny here. And I thought, uh-oh. And I went up to him, I said, have you got the tapes? He says, well, it's something from Kilburn, actually, West Hampstead. And I said, where is it? He said, oh, it's right outside the door. And I opened the door, and it was setting on a little cart that he had. The whole album was setting in the rain.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I completely, he said, are you all right? I leapt at them. I'm grabbing tape boxes, trying to pull them under my arms and stuff to get them inside as fast as possible. You know, you can see it in the transfers of the boxes. You know, now there's little sort of wet drops on the boxes. And what are you going to say to a guy? You know, what am I going to say to him?
He doesn't know, I guess.
Twat.
So you're not sick of Elton John yet?
No. There was a moment. There was a moment when I think I finished Blue Moves, which I love. And actually, Blue Moves came out. In many ways, it's the best one. I think it was a thing where I tried to go chronologically. And I saved Blue Moves for the last, because I thought, well, you know, that's sort of what I have. That's the lot that I have to do from Elton John all the way to Blue Moves.
Right.
So I thought I'll really, you know, I'll kind of graduate with them. And I remember absolutely adoring doing that. But at the end of it thinking, I'm okay if I don't hear Elton's voice for a few months. I'll be all right.